2/3 of wildcard weekend is done. One game we did not expect Monday. We will preview the Buffalo weather change for those Steelers, some negativity with the Eagles game happening Monday, and the Detroit Lions going where no Lions have gone before. All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks to everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love the everydayers out there. We appreciate you. And make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first ticket purchase. All right, so did not expect to still be talking about a Bills-Steelers game that has not happened yet. I know that has changed your schedule, which is why this Monday episode's out a little bit later. We're going to still talk about that game and how things might have changed because of the time change of that game and the delaying it a couple of days here. But I want to talk NFC first, but thanks for working out a new schedule here so we could get this Monday podcast in.
Yeah, to pull back the curtain. So I do the first hour of the pre-game show for the Steelers, and that's in studio, and that's 4 hours before the kickoff. So it's 4:30 kickoff. And we were just talking during that show, has kind of a COVID feel to it. Like Monday at 4:30 or 12:30, when I'm on the radio, shouldn't be when I'm out there, previewing games. But it's just one of those weird situations. And I drank a lot of coffee. I was at the radio station chugging coffee left and right. I'm ready to roll. We got a full day ahead. I still got another pregame segment to do when we're done. So giddy up. Let's roll, man.
Not quite as jacked up as 72-year-old Pete Carroll, but with the caffeine helping out, Matt Williamson is very close at this point. So NFC side of things, let's start with the Detroit Lions. Congrats to the Detroit Lions on doing something that they haven't done in their 94-year history as a franchise. And those fans might still be in the stadium right now. They hadn't left an hour after the game, and they may never leave. They might just hang out there until the next week's game when they find out who their opponent is going to be after Monday Night Football this week, Matt. But one, just to really show what has been accomplished for Lions fans. And look, I cover the 49ers, grew up, my first 49ers memories are 1989, 1988, when they're going back-to-back Super Bowl titles, right? You're a Steelers fan. You've seen 3 coaches in your lifetime. You've seen a lot of winning in that organization and a lot of playoff games. Detroit Lions fans have not had that luxury, Matt. No. And to put it this way, Albert Breer put it great. He said, in the 93-year, here, let me go back to it. The Lions will play 2 home playoff games in the same year for the first time in the 94-year history of the franchise.
How about that?
Never been done. This is a new era. The coach is pumped. The quarterback poetically making not only winning Jared Goff, but making the dagger throw to end the game to beat his old team that traded him away and wanted a better quarterback. And now it is the Lions advancing over those Rams.
Amazing. And I don't usually when the game's over, I don't hang around and watch a lot of the post-game interviews and all that stuff. But you could tell Goff was not fighting back tears, but fighting back the emotions of how important that was to him. The whole stadium's chanting for him. And I'll be honest, I mean, the final NFC game hasn't happened yet, but I wanted both these teams to win. I wish they were playing the Bucs and Eagles so that they could both advance, because I thought this was a very even matchup. I would say red zone was probably the difference when you really dissect it. I mean, the Lions were better in the red zone, and maybe that's the difference in what I thought was an extremely even-fought game. I'm going to get redundant in saying this, and that also applies to Steelers-Bills, but quarterbacks came to play this weekend, and in this game, we saw 2 of them. And the other games, I think we saw 1, and that team won. You know what I mean? And this one, we actually got to see 2 big-time quarterbacks in that environment doing their best work, which was fun.
It was funny because the first half of this game, I thought it was going to end up being, 40-39. And then all of a sudden points got a little bit more difficult in the second half to score. And it was a 24-23 win and only 9 total, 3 field goals in the second half combined between the two teams after they were just marching down the field to start. Nobody could stop them. And Stafford was great in this game, got knocked out. Maybe if it was not a playoff game, might not have been allowed to go back in the game. Eyes rolled back in his head. That was a scary moment. And it was back-to-back plays with Puka Nacua as well getting hit, and I thought he broke his stinking neck out there. And then both those guys were back on the field and had phenomenal games. 367 passing yards for Stafford and a couple touchdowns in that one. Puka Nacua, a rookie record on top of already a rookie regular season record of yards, 181 yards. And 9 catches in the touchdown in that one, and just the toughness and those guys playing through it. And really the Lions or the Rams, it was a great season. They played above their heads, and they have something to build on going forward now. And hopefully Mathew Stafford can stay healthy a little bit longer to see that through.
Yeah, and they've drafted really well, and they actually have a first-round pick going forward. Stafford looks like he could play a few more years, and this is a fun team to build around. Nacua is very legit. I kind of felt like the Lions might have had one more weapon than the Rams. The Rams had 2 dudes where the Lions have the Jamison Williams and Montgomery's.
The Lions just have more speed. Yeah, because the 2 best receivers, the 2 best weapons on offense are Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and neither one of them's, speed is not their strongest assets. Puka Nacua, actually, the closest comp for him as an NFL player is the guy on the other side in St. Brown. Very similar, just toughness. St. Brown's got a little bit of extra juice as a runner after the catch, although Puka Nacua's tough after the catch as well. And that rookie class, unbelievable. You had Avila, the guard in the second round, the 2 third-round pass rushers, and the 5th rounder, or was it a 5th or 6th rounder, Davis Allen, the tight end for Clemson. He was a guy I liked a lot pre-draft, and it was
tight
end
really draft.
Yeah, he might be their starter going forward, because that torn ACL this late in January for Tyler Higbee, you hate seeing that. Got hit in the knee. They think it's an ACL. We'll await MRI still on that one. They might have found their long-term starting tight end as well in that rookie class. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So it really is a good class. Everyone talks about how the Rams don't ever have first-round picks, and they didn't. But you find Cooper Kupp and Nacua and those guys in the mid-rounds, and you have the star power in Stafford and Aaron Donald, and great coach. So the Rams are going to be in this thing, I would imagine, and the Lions should be unbelievably excited. I mean, they're a really fun team. I wouldn't be thrilled to play them next round at all.
And they're going to be favorites in that second home game as well at home, are the Detroit Lions. So fantastic there. Love the way the Lions are playing. Defensive side of the ball, can they hang on? Can they play more like the second half than the first half is a question. I have similar questions about the Green Bay Packers here. And I have a similar tie-in, actually. So I have similar questions about the Packers defense as I do the Lions defense. But I want to give kudos to the Packers coaching staff, similar to the Rams coaching staff, because I think when you see a team over and over hitting on late round draft picks, it's not just because they scouted these guys and they're amazing. They're coaching these guys up. And these players are being developed and are better off landing in destinations like, Rams. And, we've seen it with the San Francisco 49ers. We've seen it a lot with the Packers and these young receivers. And of course, Jordan Love's, this is his breakout party for a lot of people who just kind of forgot about him, never really knew much about him. We cover the NFL daily, Matt, and I haven't seen a lot of Jordan Love until this year. And he's been amazing in the second half of the season and continued that in the playoffs, destroying the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, and I mentioned at the start of the show, I'm going to say a lot about quarterbacks, and this isn't just one game reaction. This is what they've done really for the better part of the year. But I think Stroud and Love have arrived. I don't know if the Packers can win a lot of games, going forward. They're going to San Fran, right? I mean, that's a tough draw, of course. Yeah. But, man, the youngest team in the league, they also have a head coach. I mean, I never put LaFleur in the Shanahan-McVay conversation, but maybe he's not far off at all. And Jaden Reed and Watson and those tight ends are only going to get better and better. So they're playing with house money, and you really got to be excited for where they're at as well. maybe we'll talk Dallas a lot more, in the next coming days. But unfortunately, the rest of the games we've talked about that already happened kind of stink. I mean, three teams laid an egg,
Right. And the Dallas Cowboys are one of those. Are the Dallas Cowboys fraud? I'm seeing a lot of that. Let's talk about the Cowboys next. And then get into those blowouts that happen on the AFC side of things so far. And then we're going to take a peek here at the Monday games as well as we finish up wild card weekend, continuing into Monday here on Peacock and Williamson. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Gametime, and you download the Gametime app, get $20 off on your next ticket purchase. More on that in a moment. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the NFL games, sporting events, music, comedy, theater events near you. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, so you don't have to worry. It shouldn't be a hassle buying tickets for your next big event. Just download Gametime and see the view from your seat before you buy. You know exactly what you're going to get when you arrive. All-in prices, my favorite part, because I hate those hidden fees right at checkout. You think you get a price, and that is not the price. And sometimes it's double the price. Your tickets are all-in pricing shown up front, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. You buy those tickets in a couple of taps. They're right there on the app. When you arrive at your event, you don't have to go fishing through your email. Your tickets on the Gametime app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is also brought to you by Jace Medical and the Jace Case. And we always come together here to talk sports and escape reality and some of the craziness of real life at times. But let's get real for a minute and talk about preparing for real life. And according to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin. And imagine needing certain medication for you or your family, and maybe specific needs for your family that you can modify and make sure you get the right Jace case for you. More on the Jace case in a second. Supply chain issues that could keep you from life-saving medications. Maybe you are traveling and you know you're going to be where you're in a remote area, no cell service, you're not going to have access to medication. Natural disasters could happen at any point, depending on where you are in the world and what type of natural disaster happens in your particular area. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, among many, many others. So visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician visit. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your Jace case. That is Jace Medical, Jase medical.com. Are the Dallas Cowboys frauds? The most trending words on Twitter after that game was trade Dak. There's talk of getting rid of quarterbacks, getting rid of head coaches. Clearly, a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who is the 2 seed coming into the playoffs, is massively disappointed by a first-round wild card exit. Not good enough on defense and really carved up by Jordan Love and that Packers offense. And then on the offensive side of the ball, we saw the thing that everyone talked about with Dak coming into the year. He goes through the season, has this year where he doesn't throw interceptions and is really efficient. He's in the MVP conversation. And then he comes out and throws a bunch of picks in the wild card playoff game, Matt. One and done Cowboys.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, you're hearing Belichick stuff, which is bizarro, but we'll talk about that more, I guess, going forward. You have to have your doubts. I'm a big Dak believer. I'm not a big McCarthy believer, but both have histories of not quite coming through in the big moment and, that clutch time, and maybe the combination's too much. And what was CeeDee Lamb doing to start the game? Or I'm not even sure if I blame CeeDee Lamb, but they could just tell everything was discombobulated there, and this defense blowing coverages. And we're talking about Quinn going to Seattle to be the head coach. I'd be a little less excited about that today than I was 2 days ago. And it's a super talented defense. I don't know, man. I think Dallas fans should be disappointed. They have not had a lot of postseason success since Aikman. You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes you need to look at ownership too. I mean, if you're a hands-on owner, maybe you're part of the problem.
With the talent that the Cowboys have on defense, I wonder if a game like this affects Dan Quinn, who was thought to be maybe a front runner for the Seattle Seahawks job as well. How do you? And it's funny because you look too much into sometimes one game and it's recency bias and you overrate it maybe. And if
this happens in week 3, nobody cares. You know, I mean, it's the nature of it, right?
And according to Josina Anderson, she says regarding the potential of considering surrounding Cowboys, the considerations surrounding Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy and his job status. Josina says that she's told, quote, no discussions of that stuff at this point. And so it's not going to be a morning after firing, and it's already past morning now on Monday for Mike McCarthy. Does that mean his job is completely safe? I don't know. But as of now, nothing there is going to happen. And I thought it was interesting that Dak Prescott said after the game, and I love him taking ownership of it. He said, if Mike McCarthy's on the hot seat, I should be too. And Cowboys fans,
I love that.
Okay, send them both out. Was the
get them out of here? Yeah.
Well, you can't really win in that case if you're Dak Prescott. You're trying to be honest, and he talked about how he played bad, and he did.
He did. So maybe this news happens in the next couple of days, but the only reason I could see a coaching change is Belichick. And I've been told way before, earlier in the season, Jerry Jones has adored Belichick from afar from a very long time. And don't forget, Belichick's, mentor, Bill Parcells, was the head coach of the Cowboys too. Like these guys obviously know each other. They've been the, monsters for a long time. I can't see a random, coordinator that's 28 years old getting this job, but I could see Belichick.
Or Vrabel. What about Vrabel?
Yeah, it's not bad either. Okay. Yeah.
Vrabel would not take duties from the Jones family. That's still the sticking point for me with potentially Belichick and Jerry Jones is the Jones family's going to be in charge. And I don't know if Belichick's going to be cool with that.
Right. It could turn into Jimmy Johnson real quickly,
Yeah.
It could be good. I mean,
and some things you like, I can deal with it. And you start dealing with it and you're like, nope, never mind. Don't like that at all.
2 years, I'm done. But you give him Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons, he might get that Shula record and maybe a ring. Who knows?
So Green Bay Packers advance and really hot in the second half of the year, coming into the playoffs, 9-8, the worst record of the playoff teams, and now knocking off the 2-seed Cowboys on the road. And they're going to have to be road warriors if they're going to do with this because they got to go to the 49ers now, primetime Saturday night. 48-32 win for the Packers. Looking at the AFC side of things that happened on Saturday, Matt, a couple of blowouts. And was it as simple as both teams had better quarterback play? Because the Chiefs, Dolphins especially, when I watched Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball on the same field in the same game and Tua throwing the ball in the same field in the same game, Patrick Mahomes was not bothered by it, and Tua was. I think it might be potentially that simple. And Tua was like bundled up. It looked like he was wearing an extra uniform underneath his uniform. He looked very thick, and I don't know what look, I wouldn't even have gone to the game and stood in the stands, let alone be able to play. Right. So I'm not blaming Tua at all, but that's what makes Patrick Mahomes special is he can grip the ball and sling the ball in whatever kind of weather comes his way. And to me, maybe it's oversimplification, but I thought that was the difference.
I do too. I thought the AFC, I thought all of them came down to quarterbacks, not Lions, Rams, but sometimes it is that simple. Frankly, I think that'll be the difference in Bills Steelers. I don't know that Hurts is in that category to be, a star top 5 quarterback where I think Love and Stroud are trending. Mahomes has lived his whole career there. And I don't think Tua is ever going to get there, to be very honest with you. And he's probably going to be the scapegoat, and somewhat deservedly so. But his team is also very injured. And maybe they're not winning games late in seasons with that coaching staff and quarterback. And maybe everyone's to blame, not just one guy.
Yeah. And, on the road in the cold, the writing is kind of on the wall, and you hope they would be able to run the ball and that would be a difference there. But, it just wasn't enough. They couldn't muster the offense. No. Kudos to Spagnuolo, who I'm surprised I haven't seen his name more on head coaching lists, by the way.
I wonder at this point, does he just not want to do that? Does he just want to be a lifetime DC and hang with Reed and Mahomes? Not a bad gig.
If you're a defensive coordinator, and you have that head coach and quarterback, that's not the worst
better
in the NFL, especially if you're among the highest. So he could probably go to ownership and say, how about a little more scratch? I'm going to turn down some of these interviews.
Yeah, get a lot of playoff checks, maybe another ring or two. Not a bad gig. A lot of questions about Miami, a lot of questions about Dallas. We'll talk about those this week and going forward, obviously. But
one quick note on both of those, though.
Yeah,
teams will be, you're disappointed, you lose. We had this conversation a few days ago, last week. I don't remember which episode it was, but it was it might have been the mailbag episode. But it was essentially like, okay, well, you move on from Tua, you move on from Dak, you move on from Mike McCarthy, whatever it is. We've had this conversation a lot with Kirk Cousins. It's like you're still better than half the league, right? So where
this is when the
Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, like the guy on the other side, Patrick Mahomes, is not available. So where do you go from Tua if you think that he's not it, right? And so that's the difficulty of where those teams are.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, it's different than the Bears where you have the first overall pick and you can take a shot at door number 2 that looks really exciting. I mean, obviously, this will be so much offseason talk. And there's really 5 of them. I mean, I'm convinced, maybe more. I mean, I think Herbert could be that guy. Burrow could be that guy. This wasn't their year. Stroud and Love are turning into that guy. I think Stafford could be that guy, and the other obvious ones. But what do I get to? 8?
Yeah, and that's, some of them are kind of there sometimes, kind of not. Like Hurts is MVP. It's like, oh, and now what's going on? So Hurts,
Lamar, stay healthy.
Yeah, right, exactly. CJ Stroud, more on the Eagles, the Bucs, the Steelers, the Bills. Next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. A special offer for our listeners. Get 150 in extra bonus bets at FanDuel. The NFL regular season over. NFL playoffs are here, and still tons of ways to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Seen a couple of big lines already in next week's games. So if you like some of those pesky underdogs in the playoffs, that might be where the money is made next week. More on those when we're making picks and previewing the divisional round of playoff games. Right now, new customers at FanDuel get 150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is easy to use. There are so many different ways to play. Love me some parlays. Love me some draft props. Those are 2 of my favorite ways to bet. There's live same-game parlays. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays. Tons more. New Explore tab to find the bets you want in any number of sports, and I mean any number of sports, available to get in on the action with at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make that first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Okay, CJ Stroud, D'Amico Ryans. Bobby Slowick, first-time play caller. He's the offensive coordinator. Yeah. He wasn't calling plays before this. First-timers across the board. You thought, man, no way this season could possibly go this well. Winning playoff games, winning their division, Matt. And how about this for poetic? Beating the Browns, the team that traded for their star quarterback, allowed them to get name the player that's on their team right now, Will Anderson pick, trading up. And guess what? They traded the Browns pick and not theirs, which I crushed them for.
I thought they were insane.
They chose to send the Brown picks and then just beat the Browns in the playoffs. So now they will be picking earlier because they have their own pick, or they traded their own pick, which is actually later now than the Cleveland Browns pick. Unbelievable.
So I'm going to steal this probably verbatim from Nate Tice, but he mentioned it on a podcast I was listening to this morning on the way to the station. He said, look at what are the pieces every team wants? A young head coach, quarterback, left tackle, pass catchers, an edge rusher, and a corner. That's like all their best players. And I wanted to mention the corner because my first note after watching both AFC games were Snead and Stingley. And I think Jari Alexander deserves this credit too, but some shutdown corner play. Stingley on Amari Cooper, I thought was absolutely huge in this game. And Flacco turned into a pumpkin, and, the Browns don't do well in playoffs.
Oh, by the way, they still have their 24 first rounder and third rounder as well. So in the draft, the Texans do. And so let's go to D'Amico Ryans said, quote, Talking about CJ Stroud. He's a special young man. Our whole team is leaning on him, and he has the shoulders to carry that weight. That's phenomenal for a rookie quarterback. Unbelievable. First rookie to ever lead the NFL in passing yards per game. One of 3 quarterbacks, not just rookie quarterbacks, one of 3 quarterbacks ever to lead the NFL in passing yards per game, TD to interception ratio in the same season, joining who? Tom Brady and Joe Montana. Like, special.
Unbelievable, right?
Strouders doing right now. Youngest quarterback ever, youngest starting quarterback ever to guide his team to a playoff win. And I mean, the list just goes on and on. Unbelievable season for
remarkable.
Stroud. They like a stratospherical superstar potential ascending talent that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little reluctant to dive in the deep end on this guy. Just think, I need to see a little more. And boy, his accuracy is like Drew Brees. You know, like, I mean, the where he puts the football time and time again just blows me away.
Bobby Slowick, though, helping himself out in potential head coach conversations, even though he's been a play caller for 1 year, really dialed up some nice ones. And it's not like they have the most help on offense with CJ Stroud either, as his head coach alluded to a second ago.
No question.
Let's go to the Eagles. I'm blown away, Matt, what's going on right now as we approach Monday Night Football. The negativity with this Eagles team, people are talking about the Eagles. They're talking about themselves internally as if they've just lost a playoff game. They haven't played one yet. I've never seen this much negativity around a team before they've played a playoff game. This is wild.
It really is. And I'm going to pick the Bucs to win too. I just think they're in a better place. I don't like the back 7 of the Eagles, and I think, Godwin and Evans and those guys can have success. I think White can catch a ton of passes against their linebackers. And I just remember not that long ago, and Todd Bowles scheming stuff up that was messing with Hurts. And, the Eagles have their share of injuries. They just feel like they're in a bad place. Patricia's taking over your defense, and everyone's looking at him like, why are you in charge of anything at any more of this stage of your career? And the head coach lost both his coordinators, and that looks very, very obvious more and more as the season goes on, as some of your best players don't have quite their fastballs anymore. I don't love the Bucs, but I just think the Eagles are in a bad spot right now. That being said, they could win by 30. I mean, by the time you're listening to this, you're like, Matt, you're dumb,
I'm with you, though. And by the way, the Buccaneers or the Eagles on the road are still favored by 3 points.
Yeah.
So that's easy.
I'm leaning towards a Buc win. Yeah.
Buccaneers, they're playing a little bit better. And look, I don't think either one of these teams gets past the next round. Whoever wins, and they're going to Detroit to face the Lions. But the Eagles quarterback is hurt. Like, he's got a broken middle finger on his throwing hand. So
yeah, right.
I don't know how you get past that, and his best weapon on offense. And there's some other weapons, but AJ Brown's not playing. So nothing good right now, vibe wise, for the Eagles going into a playoff game. And maybe some of the worst vibes I can ever remember going into a playoff game.
I hope it's not true, but I can just see Vita Vea falling on Hurts in the first quarter, and then that hand, and I was like, oh man, I hope it doesn't happen. But boy, nothing's going their way right now.
Does it even affect the tush push? Holding on to the football. Yeah. If you can't throw well, you might got to run. You have to run more. Is going to affect his ability to hold on to the ball too. So
smashing into helmets and things.
Yeah,
right.
How about the broken helmet from Patrick Mahomes? Have you ever seen that?
That's unbelievable. I can't believe no one noticed it for a whole play. And it kind of just end up being. I want to talk about their red zone woes were a little bit of a problem, or that game could even gotten further away from. That was one of them, but that was bonkers. I mean, it had to been so cold to crack a helmet.
Yeah, that's nuts. So we talked about vibes with the Eagles. What are the Steelers' vibes? Because the game gets moved to Monday now. It's going to be starting here in a little bit. So, we did this one last because a lot of folks, when they listen to this podcast, the game will have already started or have ended by that point. Buffalo, huge favorites here by 10 against the Steelers. We already made our picks for this game, so we didn't expect it to be on Monday. But what has changed with the time change now for this game for you, Matt?
I think it helps the Bills quite a bit, because before it was the wind were going to be so extreme and the weather was going to be noticeably worse than what we saw in Kansas City in terms of the snowfall and really the wind. And Buffalo's a more talented team. They have the better quarterback. I think, before, if they would have played this earlier, you could narrow the playing field, give it to Najee Harris 100 times. I still think the Steelers can keep it close, but the only thing that I think that benefits them with the weather being more reasonable is I think Pickens and Johnson can have success against these corners, which are really banged up. And now I actually think they may throw the ball outside the numbers down the field where I didn't think they would going into the game.
Yeah, which still doesn't help them against a team that can do that better as well.
They can do it anyways, right?
Buffalo Bills, and obviously it's not going to be great weather. It's 17 degrees and there's still snow everywhere, but it's not going to be that active storm wrecking the game like it could have been. So
there was like 50-mile-an-hour gusts. You couldn't. The kick. I think you'd go for 2 every time, and I mean the way it was laid out. Now it's going to just be a bizarre cold weather game, but not rare.
A normal bad weather game instead of just a screwy game. Yeah. So Bills. I think it's going to be a Bills blowout. I think it's going to be similar to what we saw with Chiefs and Dolphins here in this one. Although the Steelers might be able to muster a little bit more than the Dolphins did in this one. Give me the Buffalo Bills, and I'm even going to give up the 10, which I would not have previously with the game getting moved.
Yeah, I put a couple ducats on Steelers plus 10 when I thought this thing was going to be in an obscene blizzard. Now I'm not as confident.
Betting angle. I wonder, does that nullify bets? Because the league is in bed with betting now too, and I'm sure
I didn't get any notifications. Hey, do you want to pull your bet?
Right. I'm sure there's a ton of people that bet on the Steelers that would not have, knowing that the game
100%.
was going to lose. So that changes a lot, and absolutely I think does help the Buffalo Bills here. So. There we go. That is the wild card round so far. We'll be back tomorrow. We will know exactly what those matchups will be next week in the divisional round of the playoffs. Get your questions in as well for our mailbag this week at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, or drop a comment, drop a question in the YouTube comments section. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.